Okay, I think I'm ready. All right. So we are starting. Welcome to Work Friends Podcast. My name is Tyler. I am your host. Thanks for joining us for a another episode. I believe this will be episode 7 or 8. I think it's going to be episode 8. So, but anyway, today I'm joined by my good pal Keith. Keith is an aerospace engineer, I believe. Last time I checked. So, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, thanks for bringing me on the pod.
Yeah, man.
I'm doing well.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I've been wanting to talk to you about this forever because you're probably one of the smartest guys that I know, and I also don't know anything about what you actually do for a living. So this will be pretty interesting for me to find out.
Well, it's going great because you haven't called me a rocket scientist yet, so that's already above what most people will say.
It was coming up next. I was going to call you like a satellite scientist because I'm pretty sure that's what you really, I think that's what you've actually worked on. So
At first, yeah.
Rocket scientist, satellite scientist, same thing. But yeah, man. So I think I don't know if you listened to any of the episodes yet or not, but I kind of like to take my guests and start at like high school, and then go to up their career path up to college, and then go to where they are now. I think we're all unfortunately pushing 30 at this point, so it's kind of cool to get a little 10-year check-in, see where everyone's at, and see how everybody's doing.
I'll be 30 in like 3 weeks.
Yep,
Jeez.
I've got 2 months, I believe.
And then you die, I
So,
think.
yeah, that's it. After that, once you turn 30, everyone sings happy birthday to you, and then they take you out back and shoot you in the head.
I thought you just keel over.
No, well, that's if you don't keel over, then they just take you out back and just two in the back of the head and toss you in the ground. So, happy birthday. But yeah, so I guess do you want to go ahead and get started? So you're an aerospace engineer now, right? Or well,
Kind of now.
kind of now, yeah, sort of, kind of now. You kind of, well, kind of between jobs at the moment. But your last position, you were like an aerospace engineer, right?
Yes, so I guess technically the job position was mechanical engineer, but
Okay.
that's a very general engineering discipline that can apply to a lot of different things. My degree is in aerospace engineering, but being a mechanical engineer for an aerospace company is very similar to just being an aerospace engineer.
So, you were also in that engineering program that everybody's talked about a lot, right?
Yep,
So,
at Bird.
So Ed Bird, everyone's already heard about the engineering program quite a few times. But you're an aerospace engineer, which, in my mind, rocket scientist. I know, sorry, but pretty smart dude. What were your grades? What were your grades like in high school? Did you get like straight A's pretty much the whole time?
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I got some B's. I don't think I got C's until college.
Oh, you did. You
where
got
it a lot
C's.
Oh yeah. College is hard as shit. Can I curse?
You can definitely curse. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
actually started using a bleep button for my last guest. He cussed a lot. So.
Yeah, well, it was hard as shit.
All right. Well, hey, there you go. Bleep. That was college you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Bird wasn't too bad.
Okay.
We had a couple great engineering teachers that made us think outside the box and do fun engineering projects. I remember at one point we had to do this medieval thing where you had to both build a medieval siege engine and then also build a castle out of clay.
That
and
sounds
then we
pretty
would
cool.
shoot our medieval siege engines at other people's castles.
That's awesome.
And I remember distinctly building Helm's Deep.
Did you really like from Lord of
Yeah.
the Rings?
Yeah.
That is so cool.
It was very fun. I wish I had a picture or literally any proof of this.
Yeah,
But I very distinctly remember it.
That's the coolest thing. So I'm glad you you remember that project because again, they're like the fourth or fifth guests that I've had that went through that engineering program, and each one of you has said like a different crazy project that has been like sounded like the coolest thing that I never even came close to in high school. So
You brought up the hover car.
I believe that was Allred. I believe
I'm
Allred
sure
brought
of
that. Yeah.
He was on my team.
Was
and
it? He was on.
Yeah.
That's so cool. He was on your team. What kind of
We were
hovercraft
all
did you guys?
various. I don't remember what we did exactly for the engineering, but
Mm-hmm.
we did our theme. You had to choose a theme, and we did like rock stars.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I dressed up as Slash, and I forget what CJ dressed up as.
That rules. I don't either. I remember the story,
I don't think
but
it was. It wasn't who.
Axl Rose or
It was Axl Rose, I think.
he was Axl Rose. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Lead
I
singer.
think maybe someone did the guitarist for Bono. I forget what his name is.
Oh, I have
The
no
Edge.
idea. Oh, really? I don't know.
Yeah.
Not sure.
There's an old.
Somebody was Jimi Hendrix, though, right?
Well, maybe that's who he was. That
Ah,
other
okay,
guy.
yeah.
He's a
someone
Jimi
was
Hendrix kind of guy.
Yep. Hey, what's that?
Yeah, it
mean?
was a good time.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That is a good time. Yeah, I in high school I never came close to anything that cool for projects. I did things like IT. I had to like figure out what code would do and stuff like that. So that was pretty boring. But I wanted to go to high school in the engineering program too, but I suck at math, so I had to watch
Well,
from afar. I had to live vicariously through you guys.
it was funny because I think I applied to the Math and Science Center first, the Clover Hill,
Oh yeah.
and I didn't get in. And
Oh.
so back in my middle school mind, engineering was kind of like science because I wanted to be like a marine biologist or something.
Right. Hey,
Uh,
same kind of.
I mean, I learned eventually that they don't make any money, and they live
Yeah.
they live off the will of the people who issue grants to keep their food on the table. But it seemed kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a similar story to me. I have a biology degree, and I originally I did want to be like a marine biologist as a kid, something. But I eventually I found out that yeah they don't make that much money, so I kind of changed it. But anywho, back to high school. So you graduated 20 whatever 2013
17.
2014.
No, wait, that was college.
Yeah, that was God. Did you have any jobs while you were in high school? While you were working on the engineering program? What was your first job?
I believe I had two. I
Really?
think my first was part-time at an ice rink
Yeah, I
down
remember
by
them.
Midlothian.
Richmond Ice Zone, right?
Yeah,
That's
that
pretty
was
cool.
that was something. It's like minimum wage,
Mm-hmm.
understaffed, and I'm pretty sure even though I was supposed to be inside doing ice rink stuff, sometimes he'd make me mow their lawn.
Son of a bitch. What else did he make you do?
And then they would do speed skating there.
Sounds
And
scary.
that was fine. I didn't really care about that, but
Yeah.
we had to put up these big like foam pads along the edges for if people slip while speed
Oh,
skating.
yeah.
But
Going
when
60 miles an hour.
yeah. And we'd stack them back in the back when we were done with them, but they'd be all mildewy
Ew.
and they'd smell bad. And
Ew.
sometimes there'd be like hand-sized wolf spiders hiding under them.
Oh, that's horrendous. That's terrifying. Well, dang, that sucks. So, what did you have to do at the ice rink? What was your job? Were you just like a
I was just that rink
maintenance
guy.
guy?
The
Okay.
rink guard, they call them, I think. You know, the employees that will have the yellow hoodie and they'll just skate around and make sure that 5-year-olds don't bring hockey pucks on board
Yeah.
on the rink, or people aren't all locking arms and like doing a Red Rover kind of thing.
It's like trying to take people out.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
was always in charge of having to put one of the 3 terrible music CDs in that had the same 10,
Yep.
like 8 songs.
That's fun. Yeah, and you get to go slowly insane listening to Britney Spears for
Yeah, the
the
4 months
30th time in
between
one day.
around Christmas, it would be Christmas music.
Oh my God, it's
I
terrifying.
remember one
Not
time for
terrifying,
one
but
of those
terrible.
Friday night teenager skates that they would do. Everywhere does.
Yeah.
I was allowed to try to use my own music, and so I was putting on things like "Stairway to Heaven" and all these other rock songs.
How'd
and
that
the kids
go?
were like, "What is this garbage?
Oh
Put
no,
it back."
they don't know. They don't know any better. That's funny.
But then my other one was I think I was a waiter
Oh
at
yeah.
Crown Plaza over in Richmond.
Oh, yeah,
It was like
okay.
a hotel restaurant.
That's right.
It was
Yeah.
great because I don't like waiting tables, and there was very few people that would go to the hotel restaurant.
Yeah, true. I guess it's just people staying there pretty much.
Yeah, whenever I'd go to like a Texas Roadhouse, I see each waiter has 10, 15 tables to serve.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it
no.
looks miserable. I could never
It
do
does.
I forget the second someone told me their drink order, I would forget it. As soon as I turned around, I'd be like, Diet Coke, what'd you want? Water?
Well, I would write everything down. There
They'd
was
have
no
to
way
tell-
I'd
yeah.
try to remember it.
It'd be terrible. It'd be like instantly as soon as I turned around. But
And then sometimes our cook would just leave to take a smoke, and then I'm like, they're asking where the food is, and he's just not in the kitchen.
he's just been outside for 10 minutes or whatever.
Yes.
Oh,
my
man.
God. Anyway.
Did their food ever smell like cigarettes? I had that happen a couple times.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, that's good. I've had that where people, well, I haven't had. I've heard stories of like people will like their cooks will go smoke and stuff, and they'll come back in reeking of cigarettes, and then the food that they prepare will then smell like cigarettes. So not great, but anyway. Okay, so that was high school. Where'd you go to college?
Virginia Tech.
Whoa,
Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University.
Hey, sounds fancy. It is fancy. I know that they're kind of hard to get into, especially their like engineering programs. Okay, cool. You went there all 4 years, I guess. for 5 years. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of wish I did 5 years because the credit load was a lot. It was like
Yeah.
18 credits at least a semester.
Mm-hmm.
And a few people eventually did do a 5-year program for aerospace.
Oh, really?
That would
Okay.
have been more money, but it would have been a lot more manageable.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. I regret that about college is I rushed through it and I did mine in 3.5 years. And I think my grades suffered because of it. I don't really feel like I remembered anything. So I don't know. I kind of regret that. But
I got like a 3.2 or 3.15 GPA or something.
Hey,
It was good enough.
That's way better than me, pal. But okay, so you went to Virginia Tech, and then you went there for all 4 years. Got pretty good grades, decent grades. I guess when did you know that you wanted to be an aerospace engineer? Did you figure that out like when you were a kid, or
It was
in
high school.
High school, okay.
Because I wanted to be a bunch of things as a kid. Wanted to be a paleontologist because Jurassic Park was cool.
That's a good movie.
Wanted to be a marine biologist because aquariums are cool.
Ocean's cool.
But once I didn't get in Clover Hill and started an engineering program, engineering was fun. And I guess I was pretty good at math. My dad would drill the math, the multiplication tables and all that stuff in when I was a kid, so it worked out.
Really? Okay.
But always thought space was really cool.
Space is cool.
And space plus engineering equals aerospace engineering.
That makes sense. Yeah, space is cool. I've been on the space train since a young man, so space rules. But
it decently versatile. I mean, you could always be a mechanical engineer because mechanical engineer is essentially like anything that's not electrical, software, or civil. Civil engineering being like construction and buildings and infrastructure. And then electrical being electrical stuff, and software being like coding and creating
IT
programs and IT and everything. But aerospace is kind of like mechanical. We took a lot of the same classes, but we also took classes like aerodynamics, hydrodynamics, like satellite dynamics. Dynamics being moving things.
Okay.
So things move. You have to have all the math and equations for them.
Okay. So you're taking a lot of like physics-based classes?
Physics and math. Yeah.
Okay. What would you say was like the most challenging class that you had to take? Do you remember?
So there was a fun couple classes. It was junior year was when things really ramped up. It was either freshman or fall or spring semester, but we called them the 3Ds of death.
Oh, good Lord. It sounds
was
drastic.
Dynamics, which is what we take after statics. So statics is easier.
Okay.
Because statics is
Stuff
essentially things that are in place. Yeah.
Okay. And dynamics is things that move. Got it.
Yeah. So like if you're standing on a bridge, there'll be a math problem like your weight on the bridge pushing back up, Newton's third law. Action reaction. How much stress is in the bridge. That's a statics problem.
Crazy.
Dynamics problem is like things are moving, and so every forces aren't equal.
Okay.
So that was tough. And then the second was D forms.
Okay. D forms?
Yeah.
D hyphen forms?
DEFORMS.
Okay,
D-forms.
so deform. Okay.
And essentially, if we go back to the bridge problem, it's simple to think that the bridge doesn't move. It is frozen in place, right? And that makes things simpler. But in reality, no matter what the material is, everything moves a little bit when you push on it. If you think of something obvious like a squishy ball, you squeeze it and it squishes. But if you think of like a plate of metal, you step on it, it still squishes, but like microscopically.
Right. We can't see it. We can't.
But if you put a lot of force on it, then it does squish.
Yeah. Sometimes permanently.
So that's about the deformation of things.
Okay.
So you're building upon the previous classes like statics and all that.
Okay.
And then the third one, I'm sure a lot of people took this one if you're in anything science or STEM related, differential equations. But yeah, those 3Ds of death, because we had all three of those in one semester.
Okay, and it was remember what the 3Ds were? Dynamics,
deforms, and differential equations.
Deforms and differential equations. Okay.
Yeah, it was tough. There's a couple other really hard classes.
Yeah. Did you
There's this.
we started taking like the engineering classes in junior year? You said because I guess
Oh, those were
freshman
some.
and
No, more like sophomore year.
okay,
Freshman
fresh
year, we at Virginia Tech there was a bunch of different,
like gen ed.
yeah, liberal arts requirements you had to take. So I was taking like history, and I was able to test out of chemical. I mean, not chemical.
Chemistry.
Chemistry
Nice.
because of AP classes in high school.
Okay, I gotcha.
But like a lot of people taking chemistry, I mean, we were taking like calculus 1, physics 1, then we took like calculus 2, physics 2,
I hear you. Okay.
uh, like intro to engineering.
Yeah.
But you could
Um,
actually go into Virginia Tech as a general engineering if you didn't know what you wanted yet.
really? Okay.
Yeah, but I went in as an aerospace engineer.
Okay, I gotcha. That's incredible. Okay, so you freshman year, you were like aerospace engineering done.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay, now a lot of people do that. A lot of times people wait till like sophomore, junior year to, dial it in what they want to do. That's cool. Good for you. So around what time? So I guess junior year, you said is when those 3Ds of death came in,
yeah, it
and
got
the
pretty tough.
classes started getting more tough. Around what time you also took place in the Hyperloop project, right, at Virginia Tech?
Yes,
So
so
that's pretty cool. Do you want to explain, I guess, what that is and then how you got involved in it, or vice versa?
yes, yeah, so different ways you could stand out on your resume going out of college was you could do internships or you could do design projects, and in addition to your grades. And so I tried to do these extracurricular design projects throughout my career, and so Hyperloop was junior and senior year. We did it for like 2 years,
Hmm.
and there was a bunch of different engineering design projects you could do at Virginia Tech. There was like Formula One, where you yeah, where you
Like
just like the team made a little Formula One car and they raced it.
that's incredible.
There was Baja, which was like another race car, but
Hmm.
it was one of those like off-roading kind of roll cagey looking cars.
Oh yeah, they do the Baja. I think it's called like the Baja 5000 or something in
Hmm.
California or wherever, and they'll like race them on the desert dunes, and they look like souped up punch buggies, kind of.
There was, I think, even like
They're
human-powered
cool.
submarine was a project where you had to like make a little submarine that you kind of drove inside of it, one person like a bicycle almost. But
Cool.
I think they did races in that with that. But
That's awesome. I've seen those little things before. That's cool.
what I did was it was a new one. We had to get sponsorship and everything called Hyperloop.
Okay.
And this was before. I want to preface with this is back when Elon Musk was insane.
Back when he was palatable.
Yeah, but he released a white paper, which is what someone calls an idea that they like publish an idea. And so he published this idea for Hyperloop, which is essentially a high-speed rail, but in a tube, and they evacuate all the air into a vacuum essentially, so there's no air friction, which lets
Ooh.
things go really fast, just
Okay.
like space. And
Incredible.
so you'd have like a train that would be able to go extremely fast through this tube to get to destinations. Like I think he wanted to go from San Francisco to LA in like a half hour.
Wow. That's
It'd be cool
pretty
if
neat.
they had one of these up the East Coast and
Yeah.
stuff. And so he presented this college competition. It might have even been open to industries too, like companies. But
Hmm.
this competition was to design a train car that just had to carry one person, and it had to operate in this test tube
Hmm.
that they built over at their headquarters in Hawthorne.
Test tube train. Okay.
Yeah, they built like a tube with a track, and you had to build a train car, bring it over, and you essentially race them.
Like a testing environment. Okay, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So it was a really cool idea, and we were able to get buy off. We got a professor to sponsor us and be
Hmm.
our mentor, as you have to do with a project. And I was on like the propulsion team.
Okay.
We had to figure out a way to make it move, and we went with a very simple propulsion system. They call it cold gas,
Okay.
where there's no ignition. It's essentially just pressurized air out of a nozzle.
Wow. Okay.
And then the other team that was dealing with how it's going to interact with the track,
Yeah.
quite a few. I think this was the general idea of what to do is they used electromagnets.
Oh, okay. Like a mag
So,
train. Okay.
yeah, essentially like a mag train. So we have
Nice.
these feet that they design, really smart people
Hmm.
in the electrical team there. And
Cool.
so we had a magnetically lifted train car, and our aerospace team also did the skin of the train car out of carbon fiber. That was fun to learn how to
Wow.
lay up carbon fiber.
So did you create like an actual train car and you like built it in some big garage or something?
Yeah, so we were granted essentially a little garage area that they had open at Virginia Tech. We actually had 2 spaces that they let us use.
Okay.
I spent the whole summer, I think, between junior and senior year there.
Wow. I know it's
Yeah,
pretty much just like
we stayed at college to do that. It was fun, kind
okay.
of.
Oh, you stayed there. You stayed there over the summer. That is funny.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was pretty much just like a big like warehouse or something they had you up in.
Yeah,
And okay,
yeah, like workshop.
that's
Uh,
pretty cool.
but it was great.
Yeah.
There was 2 parts to it. There was a design competition where we presented the design, and that
Mhm.
was we all went over to Texas A&M,
Cool.
and we placed pretty well on that. I forget if we got like 3rd place or something.
That's not bad.
Which enabled us to go on to the build part of the competition.
Oh, okay. So that was like the qualifier.
Yeah.
And then once you got the okay for that, basically, then you could build like an actual train car. How long? You said it took basically like
It was like 2 years, yeah.
2 years. Okay, so it took junior and senior year.
Yeah,
How
because
did?
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. So how did it like come to an end? Did you guys came in 3rd place and then were
And
able
then
to make the
we
thing?
built it. We took it to Hawthorne. That was a fun trip. I got
Yeah.
certified to drive a truck with a 40-foot trailer.
Whoa.
And so we drove that without stopping from Blacksburg, Virginia, over to L.A.
Oh my God.
It's like a 42-hour drive.
That's crazy. So you drove a 40-foot trailer from basically Virginia to California.
Yeah, we
Oh my
thankfully
God.
when you're in college, you all can just rotate drivers and sleep because
Yeah.
we didn't like rent a hotel or anything.
Jeez, how many of it was you? Or how
It was
many
like
of?
at least 20 of us.
Okay, wow, that was probably a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a white van, one of those white vans, and then we had a pickup truck.
Okay, I got you. So it was like 3 vehicles total, I guess. Or...
Just 2.
Oh, just the 2. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Pickup truck and then a white van. I got you. Wow. That's pretty cool. Did you have any part-time jobs while you were in college, or did you pretty much just have to focus on school?
Yeah, my senior year at college, I was able to get a part-time job working at a like machine shop that they had.
okay.
That was actually at the civil engineering building.
Nice.
So I kind of got to use their equipment, and people would come in, like, I was like the assistant that helped people when they didn't know how to use a lathe or a drill press.
Okay. You'd come in and help them.
Yeah.
Nice. That's pretty
People
cool.
would just go in and be idiots about, you have to make
Yeah.
sure that people don't kill each other.
Ah, yeah, that's smart.
Like, I don't know if have you ever used a wood planer before?
I don't think so.
So when wood is, not straight, it's just this flat table that has a blade that spins, and you push it over, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
just
I've seen
flattens
those.
the wood. But if you push it in backwards, it shoots it out like a bullet,
Oh, cool. Good. That's great.
which someone did once and like almost cut their finger off.
Jesus. It shoots the blade out or the piece of wood out?
A piece of wood out.
Oh my
Like a
God.
bullet. It's like when you put a Hot Wheels car through the Hot Wheels car spinning
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And if you're holding the
cool.
Hot Wheels car and you push it across, you have control. But if you push it in backwards,
It's nonsense. Chaos. Makes total sense. I like
so-
that you put it in terms I can understand. Thank you.
I'll pretend we're in the explain
Toys.
it like I'm 5.
Yes. That's what this podcast is really. It's I don't understand anything, so explain it like I'm 5. Okay, cool. So you graduated Virginia Tech after you did the Hyperloop project, and you majored in aerospace engineering. Got your.
No, this has all been a lie.
I knew it. All right, you got your degree, and then somewhere actually. Let me back up a little bit. So somewhere along the way, you were the first of us after you got out of your college of choice. You were the first of us to move away from the great state of Virginia and go live in Florida. Before you did that, I believe you met your high school sweetheart, Ashley, your wife now, right?
I think so. Yes.
Yes, you met her
I'm
in
looking
high
at her.
school.
That's what she's telling me.
That is, she's confirming. She's shaking her head. Yes. Okay.
We're married. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. I'm getting thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay. Good deal. We're married. Yeah.
Yeah. We met back in my sophomore year of high school.
Cool. That's awesome.
She's only a few months apart in age, but it was just enough that puts you in the cutoff in school. So she was a year behind in school.
She was one grade below you. I got you.
Yeah.
And then she also went to tech too, right?
Yep.
So cool.
Yep.
All right. So you guys got to.
She went to the completely opposite half of tech, though. She went to the animal sciences.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Because Virginia Tech is a large veterinary program,
Mm-hmm.
and it also before engineering was even there, it started as I think they call it a land grant institution, and so it almost started as an agricultural school.
I knew that. It's still a big agricultural school, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
like unlike a lot of schools, when she did her animal classes, she got to go out onto the farms.
Nice.
She got to learn how to put a halter on a cow and leash train a cow. And,
Nice.
You know,
That's pretty
she
exciting.
got to do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, not a lot of people get to do that. That's pretty cool. So the reason I brought her up, and I wasn't really sure what the timeline was. After you graduated, I know you went to Florida. Did you go to Florida because of a job, or did you go to Florida because she had moved down there too? Or
No, because she was still at college for another year because of the
Okay.
grade difference. So
She was one
I
behind.
I was lucky enough to get a offer engineering job like before I graduated. So I didn't
That's
have
awesome.
to job search for years like I know some people do.
Yeah,
So
that's
but
so
that
cool.
was in Florida.
Okay, so you got offered a job while you were still in school. That had to have felt great. Probably took a load off your
Yeah,
mind.
and it was great. I remember this was during the last engineering job fair, and actually my mentor from Hyperloop,
Mm-hmm.
crazy old guy,
You shout him out if you want to.
Pat Artis.
Pat
You're great.
Artis. That's cool. Shout out Pat.
Yeah, he was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam.
Whoa. Pat sounds like he rules.
He had me go to this presentation by a company I hadn't heard of that was completely away from the job fair, called OneWeb Satellites.
Okay.
And this was an up-and-coming startup joint venture between Airbus, which is like Boeing but France,
Yeah.
like French Boeing,
Mhm.
and then a Virginia-based company called OneWeb. They decided to band together. They call those joint ventures. People do them all the time.
Yeah.
To make this company where they were going to build a constellation of LEO satellites. LEO
Okay.
is something called low Earth orbit.
Sweet. Okay. Sounds cool.
There's essentially a couple different places where you can put satellites. LEO is the closest to Earth,
Okay.
so you have the best latency. You have the least latency, the best connection. But because it's really close to Earth, you need a lot of them because it doesn't cover a lot of area.
I see. Because
So-
it's closer to the Earth. If it were
Yeah.
higher up, it could cover more. I see.
Starlink,
Like a
everyone knows
shower head.
Starlink
Yeah.
is like a shower head.
Yeah.
Starlink, the other SpaceX company, is a LEO constellation. That's why they have like 3 billion satellites up there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's why people can see them all the time. And
Yep, because
think
there's
they're-
so many of them.
yeah.
But then like there's GEO, which is geostationary orbit. That's really far away.
Okay.
And that's where GPS satellites are.
Ah, okay. That's really
And
far
so
away.
those essentially are far enough away where they actually match the rotation of the Earth, so they don't ever move. So like GPS satellites are kind of in place, almost like the moon.
Wow. Okay. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Well, the moon is not in geostationary orbit. The way that the moon spins, the same way that it rotates. You know what?
It's in the same place every night
Exactly.
relative to where
I
you
hate-
are.
You know, the moon sucks. Let's
I
stop
get
talking about
it. Goddamn moon. No, I get what you're saying. It's in the same place every night relative to where you are on the Earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yep.
I started working there down
Okay.
in Florida.
Nice. And what was
And then,
what was the name of the company you said?
OneWeb Satellites.
OneWeb
They
Satellites.
don't actually exist anymore.
Okay, cool.
They're kind of fully owned now by Airbus, so it's just Airbus US.
Gotcha. I didn't mean to say cool, by the way. But now I'm actually bringing this up. That was a cool company. It was French, like you mentioned, and I remember you having to go over to France pretty often, right?
That was a very cool perk of my first job out of college. Was
That rules.
They flew me back and forth between Toulouse, which is Airbus HQ,
Mm-hmm.
a small city in the south of France.
Which is the really nice part of France, I hear.
Very hot. There's palm trees over there. But
That
yeah,
rules.
that was a cool area. Really learned any French because French is hard.
French is hard. Incroyable. That's my favorite French word. It means
Bonjour.
bonjour.
My number one phrase was Je ne parle pas français. I do not speak French.
Say it again.
Parlez-vous anglais?
Parlez-vous anglais?
Do you speak English?
Je m'appelle Tyler.
Yes, and saying your name with a funny French accent is exactly how you're supposed
Yeah,
to do it.
and I know French people love that. when you say silly French accents.
But yeah, that was going to be my long-term job, but then
Okay.
everyone's favorite pandemic hit.
Okay, so you had that job all the way from college up to the pandemic.
3 years.
So that was 2017, right?
Yep, to 2020.
Okay. 2017, 2020. Wow. And when the pandemic came around, like what happened then? They just kind of
So, like many startups, including the most recent one that also laid me off, is investor funded, and investors don't like investing things when the world is falling apart.
correct.
And so essentially, at least as far as I know, COVID hit and the money dried up for the investor funding. And when there's no money, they can't keep us. So they laid me off.
Makes sense, I guess. Sucks, but I see what you're saying. Why they I guess I don't really understand. What exactly did you do there? What was your job?
I was the janitor.
You were the janitor, I see. So you sat in the basement and waited for everyone else to leave, mopped up. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I got my degree for.
Ah, nice, cool. You have to get an aerospace degree just to
The
be
aerodynamics of the mop.
yeah, just to be the janitor there, the moppist, if you will.
Yes, I was very moppist.
You are moppist, but
I hate mops.
mops suck. But anyway, what was your real job there?
You're gonna hate this episode of the podcast.
No, it's gonna be great.
So I was hired as a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
And what I did there was I worked on a lot of design and technical drawings, as well as helping out with the supply chain.
Okay. Oh, really? You had to order stuff?
Well, not as much order, but I would travel to suppliers.
Oh, wow.
And they would have their designs or the design reviews that I would sit in, and we check on the components that they were making for us.
Yeah. See if they would work for your.
Yeah, make sure they weren't. They call them non-conformances. So like if something is made not to what we want, make sure we fix it.
Yeah.
And design-wise, there was a lot of 3D modeling. I know most people, when they think of an engineer, they think of, using the CAD, 3D modeling CAD to make a virtual model and then use that to complete the design.
Okay. So you did a lot of that.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And also helped with the testing in the manufacturing.
Okay. So do you get your hands on? I talked to him, and he's a mechanical engineer. He works with his hands a lot. Do you do that a lot, or are you mostly working in CAD on computer, designing and?
So with smaller companies, you definitely get to do both. It was a little different with OneWeb because when it comes to expensive satellite components, usually you want to have a trained technician do that. But I was able to get my hands on more than I thought I'd be able to, because we had a really big clean room where we built the satellites and I was in there all the time. But I didn't have my hands on a ton. My next 2 jobs I did, but not as much with OneWeb satellites.
Okay. All right. Well, that's exciting. Good segue. Because I didn't know that you had another job. I thought there's only one more after that, after the French satellite place. So, as far as I know, I had you Bird, Virginia Tech, French satellite place,
Balloon
most recent
place.
job. Yeah, balloon place. Yeah, most recent job. That's all
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Yeah. But we'll come back to balloon place. So what was so after you left, remember the name of the place one more time. Sorry, the French company.
OneWeb satellites.
One web satellites. One web satellites. Okay, so
satellites.
So
Airbus OneWeb satellites, but
Airbus OneWeb.
I just call it OneWeb.
Okay, so after you left OneWeb satellites, where'd you go there? Where'd your next career path take you?
So thankfully, during the unemployment, it was that COVID triple unemployment, so it was great.
Yeah, cha-ching.
I was able to not lose my house.
That's good. Happy for you.
Thankfully, the very last week before the unemployment expired,
Oh
I
yeah.
got a job at another local small company called Craig Technologies.
Okay, Craig Technologies.
Nowadays they're called Sidus Space. Well, there's two companies now, but I kind of eventually moved over to this Sidus Space side of this company. But essentially, they were a small engineering contracting company where they would take contracts or subcontracts from other companies to do various engineering things.
Okay, all
Uh,
aerospace, like working on.
no, not necessarily all aerospace,
Mm,
but I just was working on some of the aerospace stuff. So, for example, um, NASA had a project called Human Lander System,
cool.
and so HLS, and they were trying to essentially have companies come up with the next lunar lander.
That's awesome.
It is. It was cool to be able to jump right into that.
So you got to
And
like design a lunar lander, kind of?
no,
Oh,
not
okay.
not necessarily. Uh, and there are different companies bidding on it, like SpaceX and Boeing, and
Mm-hmm.
this company in Huntsville, Alabama, called Dynetics, and so we were subcontracted to Dynetics to work on a small part of that.
Okay, I see. Like one
So we
component of
worked
something.
on, yeah, exactly. We worked on the umbilical system. So when you look at like a rocket launch and you see all the tubes connecting to the rocket, it's kind of like that. That's needed for all kinds of things, spacecraft related, or or even in a car engine. They're more like pipes,
Mm-hmm.
but there's all kinds of tubes and stuff.
Tubes. Bringing up tubes a lot this episode.
We're a big tube podcast,
Big tube
actually.
guys, definitely.
Yeah.
Um,
Honestly, my favorite thing about engineering is the tubes.
is the tubes? Yeah, tubes are the
Yeah.
most important part of engineering.
Yeah.
From what
Honestly, I
I
hate
hear.
the rest of it.
Definitely.
CJ
Uh,
probably said the same thing.
yeah, yeah. He mentioned tubes. A lot of tubes at his job at the tube place.
The tube factory.
Yeah, his job in the tube factory. He mentioned lots of tubes. Man, I
But
love
yeah,
engineering
so
tubes. Um. Okay.
so besides the tubes, that's
Yeah.
actually
Okay.
anyways,
So Craig Technologies, you were
yeah,
subcontracted to work
with
on.
this human lander system project.
That's pretty tight.
It was.
Yeah.
And so I helped with a small parts of that because I was just starting. Eventually, we switched over to a couple different things. As with companies like this, they're always bidding on new contracts. I
Yeah.
mean, so are a lot of, lots of companies are bidding on contracts. You'll hear in the news, SpaceX awarded NASA contract to do this.
Yeah.
Boeing awarded Air Force contract to build the next fighter jet. And so that's them. That's different companies bidding, submitting their design to the government, and then the government choosing someone.
Okay.
And
So-
so I worked on a project. There's a military testing center in Maryland called Aberdeen Test Center. They do lots of like weapons testing, and we were able to do a little project for them where we were building like a laser camera housing to help them with their weapons targeting.
Pretty neat. That's cool. Wow.
That's fun.
So you worked on
It's all
satellites.
kinds of things.
That's pretty neat. So you worked on like just starting. So you worked on well, we'll start with the hovercraft, I guess. A
Yes, a
medieval
leaf blower with garbage bag hovercraft.
still counts. Hovercraft, siege weaponry. Let me see.
Yeah.
And then we went
We did a
to.
ballista, I think. We found a cool stick in the woods,
I like it.
and we put a string on it,
Mhm.
and and a bolt. And that's what
Ballistas.
we used.
Ballista's a good choice for a siege weapon. That's where I would start too. So we did siege weapon, and then we went to train, like a really fast train. What do they call them? Bullet train, pretty much. Uh, and then what? Satellites, and now weapons testing, housing stuff.
Yeah,
So
a lot of
that's-
different stuff
yeah.
you can do in engineering,
Yeah, that's really cool.
especially if you're at one of these more general companies. Like one of the satellites is a specific
Yeah.
startup with a mission and goal in mind. Boeing or Craig Technologies is not a mission-focused company. They do different things.
They do more of the contracting, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
I actually just remembered that a couple years ago I came down to visit you in Florida. And you took me by your work, and it was Craig Technologies, the one workplace I forgot that you worked at.
Ah,
It was. I've seen your office. I don't know if
it
you
was
remember
just
that or
office
not, but
space.
yeah.
Yeah. But they
It was
also
cool.
had they have like a manufacturing facility as well,
Okay.
because eventually they transition also to making satellites. Um,
All right.
they're doing a small LEO constellation as well.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay. Back to
uh,
satellites.
yeah, exactly. That's actually kind of what they hired me for, and then I never
Oh.
actually did that. But
Oh. Okay.
like, oh, you have satellite experience here. How about you work on our satellites?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, sure. Just
Great.
kidding.
Never mind. Hey, you know that
Uh,
guy we hired to do that specific ththing? Let's have him do something else.
yeah, I kind of think that it keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't, but
Just wondering, what were they? What was that about? Um, but
yeah. So I just did that
cool.
for 3 years as well.
Wow, a pretty good run there too.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about it. Okay,
That
so
time I wasn't fired because
hey, all
I
right,
accepted a job somewhere else.
good deal. So okay, so that place you left on your own volition, to go to another place, another
Hmm.
engineering firm, I guess you'd call it. And this was the most recent place that I knew of, and I thought it was pretty
Yeah,
cool, and kind of, honestly,
it was very cool.
kind of inspired me to start this podcast because it sound, excuse me, kind of inspired me to start this. Wow, let me try that one more time. It kind of inspired me to start this podcast because I mean it's such a unique like concept, and it seems like one of those groundbreaking kind of industries in a way.
It was gonna be.
Yeah, where I could see it, kind of I could see it, being something in the future. It sounds like it's the future job. You sound like you're from the future when you told me about it. So anyway, this new place, I'll stop blowing
Do I
smoke up
get
your ass.
royalties, by the way, since I inspired this podcast?
Definitely.
How much money are you making right now? Probably
0.
thousands off of this.
Nothing at all. Not a dime.
I'm paying Spotify to have this hosted on them.
Correct. No, I'm not. I'm not paying. I'm not losing money, but I'm not making money either. So, all right. So after Craig Technologies, you went ahead and you said you accepted another position somewhere else at this new, pretty innovative company called Space Perspective, I believe it was called, right?
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, why don't you tell me about Space Perspective? What's that? What was their whole deal?
So another startup.
Mm-hmm.
When I say startup, that means like a new company that is often pre-revenue, so they're not actually making any money. They are
Like this
funded,
podcast.
like this podcast. This is a
Yes.
startup podcast
Mm-hmm.
with our CEO Tyler.
That's me. I'm gonna run this ship into the ground.
But yeah, so there's lots of engineering and software startups where someone has an idea and is able to garner rich people's money to materialize the idea.
Okay.
And so our founders, Jane and Tabor McCallum,
Cool.
well, Jane Potner and Tabor McCallum, they had a vision to expand on the idea of space tourism. Space tourism being like, if you've heard of those companies like Virgin Galactic, who you can buy an expensive plane ride to the edge of space and you're like waitlist for a few minutes.
Yeah, it's like 200 grand or something for a plane ticket, right?
Yeah, and so we wanted to expand that into a new direction using a space capsule and stratospheric balloon. Stratosphere being a layer of the atmosphere up towards the top, not the very top layer, but you're essentially in space. I think there's like 2% atmosphere left.
Oh wow,
And you can see most of the Earth.
that's crazy.
100,000 feet. And essentially, we use the balloon to lift this capsule up in a 2-hour ascent where we give you a 2-hour view at the top and then a 2-hour descent back down nice and leisurely into a ocean splashdown like many space capsules you see.
Wow.
And then you get picked up. And it was a really cool idea, and we were actually able to go through with it on a test flight.
There was a test flight.
There was.
Cool.
We did it off of a boat, which was not something that's been done before. No one's launched a space thing off of a boat before.
Really? No, nothing's...
They've been landed on boats, like the barges that these Falcon 9s land on.
Okay.
But
never launched off of a boat.
Yeah.
That's pretty
we called it. We called it our marine spaceport.
It's pretty groundbreaking, I feel like.
It was.
Pretty
it was
neat.
Great.
You were a part of that. That's cool.
And I was on the suspension and parachute team. So we were what connected the balloon to the capsule.
Okay.
It had the emergency system in. If something happened to the balloon would be let go by a release system that we made.
Got it.
My team made. and then it would release parachutes. Because and the whole idea of this, which is different than like those high altitude plane rides, is that you have to be kind of fit. You know, you can't be a 90-year-old woman or a 5-year-old kid and go up on those planes because of the G forces. But this one's almost like a hot air balloon ride, just a few,
slow
mile per hour up and down. So you could be any age.
Yeah,
families could do it.
That's pretty interesting. So how did it? I mean, a balloon. Obviously, balloons go up. How did it come back down to the Earth? Was it basically just released?
There's some valves at the top that the electrical team designed, and along with the balloon team. So the balloon and electrical team put these valves at the top that were opened when it was time to let some of the gas out, which would lower the balloon.
Okay, so just kind of release some air and let it out, basically. Okay, pretty neat. Okay, well, let me see. So day to day, I guess, while you were at Space Perspective, what would your day to day kind of look like? Was it mostly working in CAD again, or were you working with your hands a lot, or?
It was mostly mopping floors.
Mostly mopping floors. So back to janitor work again. That's good.
They paid me really well for it.
That's good. Hey, I mean, as long as they're still paying you.
No, so yeah, it was a very new design, so we didn't even have anything that existed yet.
Whoa.
So we had to do all the design and the math and then eventually build it.
Were you brought in at like ground zero?
No, I was brought in probably towards the middle, but nothing had been actually made yet. Like we didn't have any of the capsule.
Wow, okay.
The balloon hadn't even started.
Wow.
So I was a mechanical engineer again. Though at first they eventually renamed me to that. At first I was a suspension and parachute project engineer, but that's a silly name. It was mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineer sounds cool. I like that better. Parachute engineer does sound silly. That sounds made up, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it sounds...
Parachutes just appear out of thin air. There's no engineering associated with them.
That, and also, I mean, parachutes, you know, they did it. It's done. Yeah, they did the parachute. It's already... Not much you can improve on there.
Same with cars, you know, that's why they stopped with the Model T.
No, they're fine. Cars are fine. Back in 1920, they got it right, turns out.
Really tough, as are, we call them soft goods, which is ropes and anything that's not metal.
Yeah, okay.
So, and there's a whole industry around engineering around soft goods.
There is.
They're really tough because they move around so much and they get squished and stretched. So the engineering math is tough.
Because they're malleable.
Yeah, like you can have a plate of aluminum, and you know how strong it is based on its thickness and what alloy of aluminum it is. But with soft goods, you have to do a lot of testing.
I see.
And you can simulate. There's software you can simulate what happens when you bend a piece of metal. You put a force on it.
Yeah.
It's very hard to simulate a parachute because it's like, you know, you throw a piece of cloth up in the wind and it does all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah, it could do anything.
So we did a lot of physical testing, and we had a company nearby called Brevard Rigging, and they pulled our ropes with a giant pulling machine.
Yeah, like a strength test type thing.
Yep,
tensile test.
Make sure tensile testing, exactly, but like on a big scale.
Yeah.
Because we had like these big 3-inch thick pieces of rope.
Good Lord.
Yeah, those things were stronger than steel.
Yeah, jeez. I mean, what are you tying up? A rocket or something?
We're tying up a
balloon.
2,000-kilogram capsule.
That's
if you're Americans, that's 2.2 times, so almost a 17,000-pound.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's how many pounds is a ton? 5,000 something or 2,000?
2,000, I thought.
2,000. So it's like 7 tons or something crazy. Wow.
But you can't design. As an aside, this is kind of what we did.
Yeah.
So we can't just think about, okay, our suspension has to hold up that amount of weight, because it's just like an elevator. You know, it says 5 people max. If you put 6 people on it, the elevator's not going to explode. You know?
Yeah, it'll just
because
struggle.
It has a huge factor of safety on top of that.
I hadn't considered that. Yeah.
So if it's supposed to hold 1,000 pounds, which is like 5 people, 5. Not overweight people.
5.
It probably holds. Yeah. It probably hold like 30 people.
Okay.
You know?
Wow.
Because you have to assume that someone's not going to read that, and it's going to be a hotel, and they're going to have their 10 kids in it after swimming in the swimming pool. And so the same thing has to happen with ours. So we had a 4-factor of safety.
Okay. Ooh,
So
a
if it was,
factor.
let's say, 15,000 pounds,
Yeah.
it'd be 15, 30, 40, 60,000. It'd have to support
Oh,
60,000
I follow
pounds.
you. Okay, sorry, I wasn't following. I got you. Okay,
But
that
then
makes
on
sense.
top of that, we had to think about a worst case scenario. So we have to think about all of the different things that could happen. And CJ does this as well with his bowling machines.
Yeah.
Anything else, you have to think of what's the worst thing that could happen. And that would be, in our case, the release of the parachutes. So when parachutes inflate, you
Yeah.
know, if you've ever seen a parachute inflate, you get pulled really fast,
Mm.
a really big force. And we were saying that could be up to 5 Gs of force. And so, are you okay there?
Yes. Sorry, I had to mute myself. I was having hiccups. I had to mute myself, but I'm all good now. Sorry. What were you saying?
So let's say 15,000 pounds, a 4-factor of safety to make sure that we have, if our math is off, it's not going to break.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
People that design bridges do it too. You have to think about if there's 20 18-wheelers on this bridge at once,
Yeah.
is it going to break? And so if our worst case is a 5G parachute opening load, then we essentially just multiply by that. So we
Okay.
have
20.
4 times 5 is 20. So we were making sure these ropes were 20 times stronger than they needed to be.
I see. Okay. So just being really, really safe. I actually that makes a lot of sense. The 4 times safety factor. Is that a standard like thing amongst aerospace engineering or
So there
engineering
are
in general?
NASA and engineering standards. One of the most well-known ones in America is called ASME,
I've seen that before.
American Society of Mechanical Engineers. They write all the standards.
That's what that means. Okay. Neat.
NASA writes standards too,
Okay.
which is called NASA standards.
Yeah.
And so what our company did, because it didn't exist before, we had to write all of our own requirements and standards. So we based ours off of NASA and ASME.
That makes sense. Okay.
So they were factors of safety for everything. You know, you have
Wow.
a metallic component, you have hardware like bolts and screws.
Did you have a hand in like creating those standards and implement it?
Not as much the standards, but whenever I had something I had to work on, I had to write my own requirements for them.
Wow. Okay.
Both write them, but also like what would they be?
Yeah.
You know,
You had to
if you're
think about
designing if I was designing I didn't do this. If I was designing a bridge, you know, what would the requirements I would think of off the top of my head? It has to support this many. It has to support this much weight. It
Yeah.
has to be made out of this material. It has to be this long.
Okay. And you're taking all that again, the 4-factor thing, and just trying to fit all. Okay. All right. Wow. That's pretty nuts that this company got in like such the ground floor of such a like unique and kind of groundbreaking industry. Nowadays, I know you're kind of between careers and space perspective. I guess what was going on with space perspective? Do you see
Gone.
they're
Vaporized
done,
into atoms.
they're done for?
They are.
Really? Okay.
That's what at least that's last time I checked.
Okay, that's an
So
update. 'Cause
essentially, go ahead.
No, you please. I was just gonna say last time I talked to you, I remember that you were kind of
Waiting.
waitlisted, sort of waiting for them
Yeah.
to.
So we had our very successful launch in September.
Awesome. Good.
And then we all came back. We cleaned up, and something very important you do after a mission. For example, Blue Origin has been doing this because they just launched their big rocket, New Glenn, and their first stage was supposed to land just like all the Falcon 9 SpaceX ones do, but it didn't. It malfunctioned.
Oh no.
And so they have to do a failure investigation, root cause analysis, lessons learned. There's just different words for investigating why something happened. And so we did the same thing with anything that went wrong and anything that went well.
Okay.
So we got through all of that, and then like I think it was Christmas Eve, you know, kind of deal. We are told that we are all furloughed because there's no money.
Damn.
Because we were looking for our next round of funding,
Yeah.
as you do with a company based on investment funds. And I guess they just could not get people to invest more money in us.
Wow.
And I don't know what decisions led to that, but that was the reality. And so we were just all let go. But furloughed. So we were thinking it was going to come back maybe
Right.
in a month or two.
They were still
But-
hoping maybe they could get some investors or find
Yeah,
someone for somewhere else. Okay.
but by the end of January, we hadn't heard anything.
Really? Okay.
And we were getting our news from investigative news articles saying that Space Perspective owes a ton of money. They're late on their rent.
Ah,
They got evicted from their building.
really? Dang.
Yeah, so I think it's gone.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's too bad.
So yeah, a lot of us are still job searching. Some of
Yeah.
us have already found jobs. Thankfully, I live here near Kennedy Space Center, near NASA.
That's a good space for
Yeah.
an aerospace engineer to live, I'd say.
They call this area the Space Coast.
Wow. Okay. I've heard that before, like near like Cocoa Beach and all that
Yep.
kind of. Yep.
Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, where all the
Cape
cruise
Canaveral.
liners
Yeah.
are.
Cool.
So I'm still looking for a job.
Okay.
Shout out if you want to hire me.
Yeah, hire my guy Keith. He's a good guy. I vouch for him. Not that I'm just some sleazeball on the internet, but he's a good guy.
Tyler approved.
That's right. I guess. So have you had any promising interviews or anything that you?
I've had quite a few interviews. I'm kind of waiting to hear from one of them, and I have another one actually on Monday.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I've interviewed with Blue Origin twice.
Cool. Oh.
I think it was a no on both of those.
Oh, all right.
They're all going to be no's.
Yeah, okay,
right
sure.
now, because I'm going back in time.
I see. It's incredible that they can say no to you. Like in my mind, you're just the smartest guy,
Well, the reality of it
and
is
you have the
I do
experience.
think I'm qualified for the jobs I'm applying to. However, I don't know if you've heard, but the administration's been firing lots of people.
That could make it tough. I guess there's a lot of people looking for jobs right now.
There's a lot of people looking for jobs.
Mhm.
NASA had layoffs. Blue Origin let off like 15% of their workforce. But yeah, I've had a interview with another small rocket company here
Yeah.
in Cape
Something in there.
Canaveral called Stoke Space.
Stoke Space.
Stoke Space.
Okay. Cool.
They do a small. They're designing a small rocket.
Yeah. Tiny rocket.
hmm I actually interviewed for a position that would have been at Lockheed Martin
Okay.
in NASA. So you think of Lockheed Martin, you think of airplanes, but they
I
also
do.
do lots of space stuff.
That's cool.
So NASA's rocket, the SLS, the Space Launch System, it was going to replace the one they used to get people to the moon.
Wait. Say that again.
The Atlas V, that I think it was the Atlas V or Delta V, but no, there's another new rocket, the biggest one yet, called the SLS, and Lockheed Martin is the designer for the space capsule,
Yeah.
like the Apollo capsule, but nowadays.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow. That's
I
cool.
would have been able to work directly on with the new, the next generation.
Yeah. That
lunar lander, but
that would have been
that
pretty
didn't pan out
groundbreaking.
either.
Hey, that's all right. That'll happen.
I have an interview on Monday with Amentum.
Okay.
Amentum is a very big company.
Cool.
There's a big building, I think, in Virginia, up near DC.
Okay. Cool.
But that's for an engineering job.
Yeah.
That would also be at NASA, actually.
Nice. Would it be? It
So-
would be down in Florida, or?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
only looking local.
Yeah, I wouldn't
not
think
moving.
you'd move because you guys bought your house, right?
Yeah, we own a house here.
Yeah. So you guys aren't moving anywhere. Okay. Cool. Well, I wish you the best of luck, man. I think that you got it. You're like I said, you're a smart guy, so you'll find something. It'll pan
I
out.
know I will.
Yeah, it'll pan out. But what do you want to do? What kind of place would be like ideal to work at? Would you work at
Well,
like NASA, or would you work at?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
What about
NASA's
like?
not hiring right now, but I'd work probably just about anywhere except SpaceX.
I was gonna ask. That was my next question. Is
They're a little they work you a little hard over there.
that sucks, especially with everything going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
But no, I've been playing all over mechanical engineering, manufacturing.
okay.
And manufacturing engineers kind of are pretty much what CJ does. I don't.
Yeah.
CJ's a mechanical engineer, but he runs, leads a lot of the technicians, makes sure the floor is running efficiently.
Like a production line. He kind of maintains a production line type. Okay.
Yeah, he works on he makes sure if there's improvements to the efficiency of various parts of the factory, he'll improve on those.
Right.
So that's manufacturing.
Okay.
There's systems engineering. So if you think of two routes you can take when you are an engineer, you can go really detailed into one little thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then you hear about these 80-year-old graybeards who everyone in the planet will go to them because they know everything there is to know about this one thing.
Yeah.
Subject matter experts, they
Uh-huh.
call them. I always thought it was fun in watching Animal Planet. This sounds like an aside, but no matter what they were talking about, the most obscure fish or animal,
Yeah.
they'd like bring in like Jeff. And Jeff, you know, he was the expert on
Oh
this
yeah,
animal.
just some guy who was that one expert.
Like he's been exploring this animal for 20
Yeah.
years. He knows. So that's a path you can take in engineering. You could become an expert on something.
Yep, you can.
But then the opposite is you become a systems engineer, where you look at the whole system overall and make sure everything comes together. You know,
I
the
see.
electrical team, the structures team,
If
make
you
sure
have,
they all integrate correctly.
I see. So if you have Jeff, who is the expert on that one animal or whatever, he's an expert on geckos or something. You'd have a systems engineer would be like an ecologist or something, someone who studies the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a great
Boom.
that's a great one.
That's two. I'm 2 for 2 on analogies this episode, I think.
That's your job on this podcast. You create the analogies.
That's right. I'm the one. I'm supposed to draw connections and connect the dots and all that. But okay, well, cool. Well, I'll tell you what. I think that'll just about do it. You got anything else you want to add or talk about? All good.
I think that's fine.
All right, sweet, cool.
Oh, it's funny. I'm kind of in prime for this from all the interviews.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I
Tyler
figured
is really going to take me on my day off and make me interview again.
that's why I felt bad about asking you to interview. I felt bad.
No, I love interviews. That's the best part of, not having your application be thrown into the void.
For sure, and they read every bit of it. I'm sure, definitely.
Oh, well, nowadays they don't even read them. They let an AI determine if you're a good candidate.
Yeah, so that sucks.
Thankfully, that's
But-
what the networking is for, because I've been trying to talk to people and get referrals,
That's
and
smart.
then I submit my application.
That's really
And then
smart.
essentially I get a guaranteed read of it.
That's a pretty good idea. Have you been using LinkedIn at all?
Yeah,
To do that? Yeah.
LinkedIn is yeah. That's how actually Space Perspective essentially cold called me on LinkedIn.
Oh, really?
A recruiter did. They hired a recruiter because
Oh.
that's what you do when you're looking for a job, and they messaged me on LinkedIn. Hey, you want to apply for this job?
Yeah.
I'm like, is this spam?
Is this real? Is this a nice,
And then
well-paying job?
I,
Is trying to hire me?
Yeah, no, that was the reason I left Craig, was because it was like a 30% pay raise.
You gotta do that. Yeah, no, LinkedIn rules. So LinkedIn, you should sponsor this podcast. Thanks. But cool. Well,
That would actually be the perfect sponsor.
it would be a really good sponsor. Don't
You should
trust
reach
me.
out to them.
I did. Trust me.
Okay.
I'll reach out to him again. Don't worry. But yeah, man. Well, I think we should go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for letting me talk at you for an hour 20 minutes there. This has been another episode of Work Friends Podcast. Thank you so much, Keith, for letting me interview you. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, man. Good talking to you. So anytime, we'll get you back on here again. But yeah, I guess that'll about do it for me. So thank you all for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow on Spotify and all that good stuff.
Okay, I'm off to
but-
Joe Rogan's now.
All right, and now he's gonna go see Rogan. So bye, everybody.